Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, we welcome another new panelist to the podcast, Hans Schrei, who is co-founder of Wunderkeks, an e-commerce bakery in Austin, Texas. Hans tells Jay Goltz and Liz Picarazzi why he and Luis Gramajo, his husband and co-founder, sold a business in Guatemala, immigrated here in 2019, and started their cookie business from scratch, going from selling at farmers markets their first year to doing more than $5 million in e-commerce last year. Hans also explains why he doesn't think it's enough just to make a delicious cookie, why he's trying to raise seed capital, and what would happen to his visa if Wunderkeks were to fail. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine recently named the best newsletter for business owners, and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. Liz Picarazzi, who is CEO of City Bin, which is based in Brooklyn, New York, and makes trash enclosures and package bins. And, of course, Hans Schrei. The episode is titled, Wunderkeks Has Two Daddies. Welcome, Jay, Liz, and especially Hans, the newest member of our 21 Hats podcast team. It's great to have you all here. Hans, we want to introduce you. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you do. Your company is called Wunderkeks. What does it do?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Lauren. Well, Wunderkeks, we make the best cookies ever and we ship them nationwide. But more than that, what we're doing is creating conversations that build safe spaces through food and beverage products.
What do you mean by that?
That means that the way we approach what we consume now, like there's so many brands, it's so saturated that brands have become the new external signifiers, and we use them all the time to say who we are. This is particularly true of food because fashion is changing. Something like an iPhone is no longer a status symbol. So what we consume is who we are. So there's many of us who will say, oh, I will put a picture of my independent coffee shop cup in my Instagram. Or someone else is still very proud to do it with Starbucks. So the point is that we get behind the brands that say who we are. And so that's the thesis we're building. So you can go way beyond the actual product and the function of the product to allow for people to say who we are. And you can harness that to bring a positive message, which in our case is to really make a point about the need to have conversations around the creation of safe spaces for everyone. It started definitely from our perspective as gay immigrant men, but down the line we figure out like this is for everyone. So the whole point is if I am seeing carrying a Wunderkeks cookie, then that means that I am the kind of person who is an ally, who will not judge me for who I am, who will probably open me to a safe space.
How important do you think that is to your brand?
I would say it's absolutely vital to the brand. Because, we make cookies. We're very aware that we're not curing cancer. They're very good, but they have a ton of competition, if you will. And realistically, that is true of most food. Like there's a ton of different options, more now than ever. So if you keep talking about, oh, the cookies are delicious, they are, but so is going to say the guy next door, and there's a ton of substitutes to it. So the only way we get people to commit to our brand, to really enjoy it beyond like tasting the cookie, which is something that can be replicated, is by having them use as a way to say who they are. So a way that we have put it that I really love was thinking about in the context of the hero's journey. The mistake that a lot of brands use is that they position themselves as the hero. So everyone as a brand tends to want to be Luke Skywalker, and the customer doesn't see it that way. The customer wants to be Luke Skywalker, and the brand needs to be Yoda. I don't know if that makes sense. That's the analogy I use.
I think I get what you mean. We're definitely going to talk more about your mission, but can you give us a snapshot of where the business stands right now? How big is it? Employees, revenues?
Yeah, we came to the US in 2019. We started a farmer's market. For the first year, that's what we did. When the pandemic hit, we pivoted to e-commerce. And last year, we did $5 million in revenue. 99% of that was e-commerce. That's about 3 million cookies.
Wow.
That's a lot of cookies.
Yes.
What do you expect to do in revenues this year?
We are probably going to hit the same number this year. There's a lot to be said about what happened with all e-commerce business after the changes in the Apple privacy settings. So that forced us basically to relearn our business midway through last year. So we saw a bit of a contraction. So we're thinking that we're going to recover in the second half of this year.
All right. We'll get into that some more, but I'd love to talk to you about how you wound up here. You mentioned that you and your partner are immigrants. You're from Guatemala. Why did you choose to come here?
We had the business in Guatemala. The bakery I started about 10 years ago, and we were doing fine. It was well respected, well known in Guatemala, which is a tiny market, so it was a tiny business anyway. And we took a vacation and we went to California, and we drove through the coast from San Diego all the way to San Francisco. And this was a few months after Luis and I got engaged, and gay marriage is not legal in Guatemala. But we never thought much of it. We're actually talking to lawyers about like how do we manage things like property rights and end-of-life care so that we'll be covered, and didn't think much of it about how important it was to us. And then we took this trip, and along the way, we kept seeing a lot of same-sex couples with kids, which was something that I had seen on TV, but frankly had never seen live, and they were everywhere. And we felt like our eyes kind of opened, like this is something that we're not sure we want, but we were sure we want the option. And that led to conversations about what it actually means to be a family and what it actually means to be married. So when we came back, we started talking, maybe this is what we should do. This is the piece that's missing. We started to come to Austin to see if it was the right place to us. And we landed in Austin mostly because it was close enough to home. It was the liberal spot in Texas, like the little blue dot in Texas. And it is a great place for CPG companies. So that's how we landed here.
It's a great place for consumer goods companies, you say?
Yes, definitely. There's a big community of CPG brands. My theory is that it really happened around Whole Foods, which is headquartered here and has been forever.
Oh, that makes sense.
There's a lot of product development happening, a ton of events happening. And more important than that, there's a ton of opportunities to get people to try your product. So that thing is really helpful. So we landed here. We got an entrepreneur visa, which was...
Before you tell us that, Hans, tell us about what did you do in Guatemala? Did you sell your business? Did you just shut it down?
I sold it to my parents. The business in Guatemala still exists.
So is there any relationship between your business here and that business there, other than the fact that your parents own it?
No, not really. No, at first there was some consulting going on, but not anymore. It's been 3 years now.
And how tough a decision was that? I certainly understand the motivation. How hard was it for you to leave the business, family members, the country you grew up in?
It was not hard at all. I mean, the hardest part was figuring out the logistics, but we set our minds onto that, and we were very, very decided that we never got cold feet or anything of the sort. I'll give you the full context because I think it's important to say we were a gay couple in Guatemala. We were both out of the closet, so that was not a concern. And I am very privileged, coming from Guatemala. We are both educated. We both spoke perfect English. That really helps. We were very privileged that this was even an option for us to have. So I don't want to minimize, because I don't want to make myself like I suffered this horrible type of violent oppression that I did not. But what happens in places like this is, of course, there is people who are actually dealing with violence and whatnot. But for the rest of us, you kind of get a sort of a Stockholm syndrome when you normalize a lot of things that you should not normalize. And I'm not talking only about things that gay people experience. I'm talking about everyday violence. We get in Guatemala, for instance, we get this compulsion to lock our car doors when we're in a traffic light. That happens a lot. I have had my phone stolen at gunpoint 4 times probably in the past 10 years. So that was part of it. And then there's the other part, you normalize that. That becomes the default. And that is very harmful because you spend a lot of your energy there. And the other part was something that we learned how important it was for us was just being able to say and to be respected as a married couple and as a family was very important and very powerful. And at first we didn't know it because, again, you normalize it. The greatest shame about how queer people are made to live is that we are made to be grateful, to enjoy the things that the rest of people give for granted. So in our case, we're like doing this thing to ourselves where we're grateful that we are not suffering violence, where it's like, of course no one should be suffering violence. So it was not hard at all. It was not hard at all to leave, because once we realized like how the grass was greener on the other side, it was very clear that it was the right thing for us.
I think I interrupted you before. You were talking about what you had to do to get a visa to come here as an immigrant. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, in our case, it was an entrepreneur visa. I have an Austrian passport, so I can opt to that visa. And it was relatively straightforward, actually. It's just a lot of paperwork and a lot of research that I had to do with like what are the requisites and all of that. But it was not particularly complicated. The most complicated part of it was housing.
You mentioned that you have an Austrian passport. Would it have been harder for you and Luis to immigrate here if you did not have the Austrian passport?
Yes, almost impossible. It is a waste immigration system. Is set up is very confusing to start. It's very confusing, but it does, like realistically, it does put a price on certain nationalities. If you're European, moving to the US is relatively straightforward. If you are not, it's a way different situation.
Really?
I mean, we made the most. We made the most out of it, but it is it's the type of thing that really opens your eyes to how privileged you are by chance, because I have absolutely nothing to do with this, and it really opens your eyes, like of the many opportunities that are just randomly assigned to you.
Tell us about starting up the business. What did you do to get the business off the ground in Austin?
Well, the first thing that we did was actually, in order to come here, we needed to have a business set up. First, you set up a business and then you get the visa, which is kind of weird because then you're not allowed to work on the business if you don't have the visa. So, it's very tricky. So the first thing that we feared, okay, we need an actual viable business and we need to invest some money. So the first thing that we did was we went to all the farmers markets here to talk to all the people. And at some point, we actually had to fly in with samples. Bringing cookie dough through customs to a TSA is a thing. They were very confused. And so the first thing is like, okay, so I have a place to land. I'm going to be selling at the farmer's market and you need to prove with data, like, how is this a viable market? We did the farmer's market for a whole year, like rain or shine. But it was, of course, we needed to actually like be a viable business. But it was a fantastic opportunity to talk to a lot of people in a country that we didn't know. So we learned a lot very fast, and then you get to iterate. So the first week we had one flavor and people kept asking for snickerdoodles. So the second week we had snickerdoodles, and that's how it kept going.
Who does the baking?
Now?
Who did the baking then and who does it now?
Okay, back then it was Luis and I. Luis would do the dough. I would do the rest. I would manage the recipes and measuring and all those things. Luis would do the dough, and then I would bake them. It was only the two of us for a long time. And now we have a team and Luis actually manages it. Well, we have a team of 6 people that do the baking and the fulfillment. Like, they have actually grown with us.
Did you change the product much going through that process of selling through the farmer's market the first year?
Not so much that we changed the product itself, but because we started with chocolate chip cookies and we started developing new flavors and new varieties of the feedback that we got. So it evolves, and you all the time you are like, but this is like normal for everyone in baking. Like, you test, well, let's try if we use a better butter, or if we change the ratio of flour and fat and that type of thing. So it's always evolving. But yeah, like I don't think we have, even now, I think we have a great product, but I wouldn't say that it's fully done, and I don't think it ever will be.
At what point did you decide that creating safe spaces was something you wanted to focus on? That
was early this year. A lot of things happened. There was this Florida law, don't say gay bill, about public schools. There was something else happening in Utah. There was a few like our own lived experience. And the last drop was when they made the whole political theater in Guatemala about banning gay marriage, which was already not allowed. So there was absolutely no need to pass a law banning it. And that really hit home that we were so comfortable here in Austin that we had in a way forgotten like how privileged we are here. And we figured that if the two of us could forget, there was a ton of people who did. And the people who need to be reminded of, yeah, of course. I think there's a lot to be said for younger generations learning about the history and how the rights that they enjoy were hard earned before them. But a lot of it is to reminding other people who are allies, hey, you are powerful, you can help, there is a fight to be had. So that started like that. It started like about us. And it was not really named safe spaces at that point. We just wanted to have the conversation, and that's where we were going. And then a friend of mine introduced us to Jeff Furman. He is one of the minds behind Ben & Jerry's, and he's the president of the Ben & Jerry's Foundation. And he was behind their very peculiar arrangement that Ben & Jerry's set with Unilever when they were acquired, where Unilever is obligated to continue on the mission of the company. And if they don't, the foundation has grounds to sue them. So he's the guru of mission-oriented companies. We talked to him, and then he came on board as an advisor. And it's amazing. Like talking to this guy is clearly there's so many years of hard work and so many years of insights that he gives you. So what he told us things. One, like if we're talking about the safe spaces and all of this, you need to be aware that you're going to be put in an unsafe space, which was a revelation actually, but completely true. But the second part was, right now you are telling your story, and it's great because your story has taken you this far. You keep talking about your experiences and people do want to hear them. But at some point, as you grow, you are going to have to start listening and not only talk about yourself. And that led to the conversation about talking in safe spaces, not in the context of only the gay community, who definitely needs them, but in the context of the good that can be done if we all have them, because we all need them in a different way. So the safe space that I need is different than the one that you guys need. And people at different stages, in different places, at different ages, different races, they need these safe spaces, but they come in different ways. And the only way we figure that out is if we listen to them. And that is the first step to building the safe space, to actively listen without judgment. So that's when it really clicked. And this was like April of this year. And then it's when we had like this aha moment, okay, this is what we're doing. So actually we just had a meeting with a VC like an hour ago. The end goal is these conversations. The money side of things or on the mission side of things, they both need to coexist and to have a healthy relationship to each other. So at that point, like all of this really clicked and it was very clear how to move forward. So we really went all in on that.
Hans, I got to tell you, you have a very unusual, interesting journey story. And I can tell you the way I know that is this is by far the longest that Jay and Liz have gone without speaking on a podcast.
I have questions. So my question is, when I heard about your business and I went to your website, I immediately thought corporate sales. And the reason is because when I worked at American Express, we were always looking for gifts to give employees as well as to clients in a lot of situations. So there's just massive opportunity for vendors to sell to corporations like that. So I'm curious what proportion of your business is to other businesses versus to individual consumers.
Actually, right now it's quite small. I think it was next to 0 a year ago and it's close to 5% now. You're exactly right. Like you come to a company, hey, cookies, great, they're amazing. Buy cookies because they're delicious. They already have 200 different options of delicious cookies. Like they don't need a cookie. When you come at and we're actually making inroads with companies talking about this. So, this is who I want to be perceived as. And that side of the business is actually growing because of that. Because when you have the clarity of purpose, then it goes beyond whether the cookies are good or bad, which at the end of the day, it's not an objective measure. it's very hard, like in this super saturated environment, to sell them. Like, I cannot go on to them and sell them cookies. I need to sell them
your mission.
This is how you're going to be perceived. Yeah, this is what you're doing. That also gave us a ton of clarity also of like, so the cookies are secondary. So we can do other things. And actually, we are not tied to the idea. Cookies are easy. And one of the reasons that we do cookies is because, and sweets in general, because you know how sweets are ritualized? And you have a birthday cake, and that usually comes with a conversation with a thank you or an I love you or like you're important to me. So that's the opportunity. That's what we're selling. And it became, at some point we were really asking ourselves, like, what are we doing? And you get kind of bored because really cookies, like it's more same old, same old. And once it really clicks what you're doing, then all of a sudden there's a whole conversation about what is at the end of the day, realistically, a very conventional product.
Can I say something, Lauren? Because as usual, you're perceptive. I'm kind of speechless because I'm just extremely confused because I love chocolate chip cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to your site and I saw a beautiful site with beautiful cookies. And that's enough for me. And now you're telling me, oh, no, it's our story. I didn't even see your story on the websites. And then you say things like, there's 200 places to buy cookies. I don't think so, because if you said to me, Jay, where can you buy really good chocolate chip cookies online? I can't think of one company that would have come to mind. So the consumer in me, the business person in me saying, great looking website, great cookies, good to go. And now you're telling me, oh, no, it's about our story. It's not about our cookies. And I'm like in an alternate reality from what you're talking about, because I like cookies. And like I said, there wasn't even anywhere on your site that talked about, at least that I found readily. I didn't get any of that story. So my consumer part of me is hearing one thing and you're telling me the exact opposite.
You are frankly my ideal customer, so please buy cookies. And it will make my life a lot easier if everyone thought like you. But the reality is that you are if you went to our website, you're probably going to start being served. If you went to Instagram or Facebook or something, you're going to start getting a ton of ads for cookies now, because now Facebook knows.
That would be assuming that I'm on Facebook, which I'm not, or that I'm on Instagram, which I'm not. So maybe I'm just aged out of this, but I still like cookies.
You're going to learn more about Jay, Hans.
No, that's great. And that is my ideal customer. Like the reality, let me put it in a different way. The reality is this. I'm pretty sure, think of something like in my case, I only brush my teeth with Oral-B. In part, Oral-B or Crest. In part, because I used to be a brand manager for them many years ago, and I cannot use another toothpaste. It needs to be Crest. I hate it. If it's 10 p.m. and I am out of toothpaste, I will go to the store and get Crest. That's me in that particular category. And we all have one. I'm pretty sure you have one brand of something that you will only have this for a reason that is beyond performance. Because I'm pretty sure Colgate or whatever other toothpaste is fine. And the thing is that you need to understand your customer.
Let me give you a little insight that maybe you don't have. Laura, who's on our show, sent me some chocolate cookies in these like pizza boxes from this really hip, cool cookie place. And nowhere in this delivery was there a note saying where they came from. I had no idea where they came from until she called me 2 days later and said, hey, did you get the cookies I sent? My point is, I think you're giving too much credit to everyone else that's out there in the world, that there's these wonderful cookie companies with beautiful websites that ship on time with lovely... I don't think you realize that most companies are really mediocre or bad. Here, this cool cookie company wasn't even smart enough to put a note in there as to where they came from. So you might be surprised to find out just running a really good company will keep you a lot of good business, because there aren't that many of them.
As a matter of fact, Hans, if I heard you correctly, you sold $4 million worth of cookies last year without having the mission. Is that correct?
Yeah. So let me get back to my example about cookies. Is that someone else can come and say, hey, my cookies are even better and they're cheaper. You, who are not the most engaged of customers, are going to go to them. And that's fine. Some of the customers are going to do that. Like, same thing, toothpaste. I will not buy Colgate under any circumstances, but I'm pretty sure that even Luis, my husband, doesn't really care. And he'll be fine. But there is the type of customer that you're looking for and that you want to engage, that is going to have a ton of options. You want them to try yours and to fall in love with you so that they keep coming back. it's very hard to convince someone to come with you, and acquiring customers is the most expensive thing that you can imagine, particularly in e-commerce. So it's very hard to have someone come at you and stay with you over and over again and tell their friends. What we're doing is giving people the tools to talk about us. We're telling people, these are not chocolate chip cookies. These are opportunities for you to have a conversation with the people you love. So that means that they will buy them. You will be surprised. When you see that they put this label on hair dryers, not to put them in the vat, you will be surprised on how necessary they are. So if we tell people, share them, and actually we put a little instruction manual that says, hey, this is a dozen cookies. The first is for you. The second is for you to put on your social media, and the rest of them are for you to share. And if we give them that tool, that goes beyond the cookies. Cookies, there's a ton of solutions. They can go to the supermarket and get cookies. But here, they have a conversation starter. They have something that they can share with someone else. So they are not buying cookies. There are customers who are buying cookies. The problem is that I don't really know who is who. I have no way of knowing who is just buying cookies because they have a craving and who is really interested in having these conversations. But the point is, if I offer them all of this, so everyone will take up the brand what they want, but I get them to feel a specific way about my brand that, I don't know, cookies that their grandma made, maybe not. So that's the idea. Some are going to be casual customers, some are going to be very engaged customers, and most of them are going to be in the middle and they're going to say, oh, how cute, and not think about it twice. And that is fine. You need to be very aware of that. And I think a lot of brands make the mistake of thinking that everyone is going to be a brand ambassador. Like, I would say you're lucky if 1% of your customers is talking about you with their friends. And that's the reality.
I have to strenuously argue with that point because I've built a pretty big business with doing nothing more than giving a great product and great service, and they do send their friends in. And I'm not arguing with you that I think your story is a nice added element that will pick up some extra business and maybe keep some other customers. But I do not buy for one instant that if you don't have some story to tell, well, they'll tell all their friends that you won't be. Every successful business I buy from because they give good service, a great product every time, and they're good to use. I'm not arguing that it's a good thing what you're doing, but I don't think that's the critical piece to running a successful business. I think delivering on time and having a good product is what's critical.
I absolutely agree on that. The thing is that, and think of you were in your 60s, you said, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been going to the same supermarket, for instance? Like your brand loyalties, you started them many years ago. Think about toothpaste. What toothpaste do you use?
You know what? I've used several over the years. I've changed numerous times. I did see a study one time that said that getting someone to change the candy bar they buy is extremely difficult. Now, that makes sense to me because I'm a Snickers guy. I've always been a Snickers guy.
There you go.
So I got it, but I don't think a branded product like a Snickers bar is the same as I think if you, and your website's beautiful. Before I went on here, I wanted to see what you were all about. I understand why you're successful. You've got a wonderful website, and I assume your cookies and brownies. Let's not ignore brownies, by the way. Can we not ignore brownies? And the brownies look great. I'm sure they're good. You're clearly doing some things right, a lot of things right.
In a very short period of time.
So I have a visual to bring up. I want to try to bring in a visual that may help me understand this. And so Jay brought up the pizza box with the cookie inside. Hans, what does your packaging look like? And are you able to get your mission on your packaging in a way that cookie company in the pizza box wasn't thinking about it as real estate?
Yeah, we invest a ton of our packaging. It's a pink, very fancy box. Lauren has seen it.
I've tried the cookies too. They are good.
So there's a lot to be said for the packaging. The thing is that it's very hard for, the people I'm selling to are younger people who are in their 20s later. Is kind of in a transitional time in their lives. And this is where their brand loyalty.
Wait, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because those are the people
people order, they put their name, they put you a charge card, you ship cookies. How do you know how old they are?
Facebook models that, and Klaviyo's email tool models that. Facebook can tell me who is clicking on our ads, and they are 65% female and over 50% between 25 and 44.
Did you consider the fact that some people aren't on Facebook and that
for sure.
it's like going into a bar and saying everybody's a drunk in there, so everybody's a drunk in the world? I mean, you're going to Facebook and you're using them as the sample, but plenty of people aren't on Facebook.
Oh, sure. But I'm doing an e-commerce business. So effectively, I can sell to people who are on Facebook. That is the medium that I use to get my customers. So yeah, it's a different situation if I were doing outdoors or that type of thing. But given the constraints I'm working with, I am like, there's some selection bias, of course, because I am doing e-commerce on Facebook, and even the brand is presented in a way that's probably going to be more appealing to a certain subsegment of consumers. It's probably more to women than to men because it's all pink.
Okay, so wait, I just want to be clear. I didn't know that. You're saying that most of your new business that you got through Facebook. Is that true?
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right, that changes then. Okay.
In e-commerce, that's pretty much the game right now. It's Facebook or TikTok, which is even younger. But the thing is that if you're talking to the segment of people and you're giving this all of that, the thing is that think of Snickers bar. You love Snickers bar, and it's going to be very hard for me to change that. It's probably impossible because you've been eating Snickers bars for 30 years, something like that, and you like them, and you are not in the market for a new one. But when I'm talking to a 25-year-old girl who is just leaving college, she's something like is in a transitional stage, that's when she's building her brand loyalties. And the thing is that when you first fell in love with Snickers bars, there weren't 100 options, and they were not online, and they were not showing themselves to you at Facebook or Instagram all the time. They were not saying buy constantly the way that they are now. So my customer, who is 25 years old, she has 100 different options at her disposal. And let's assume that they are all equally delicious. Like they're chocolate chip cookies. They're all just as good. She has hundreds of options. So I need to give them something else, because otherwise I cannot control. The only other tool I have is price, because they expect, like you should see my customer service, and I think we do a very good job. They expect like the bare minimum is decent service, good service, good follow through, quality product, timely shipping. They assume that is what you're offering. That's the very least you can do for them. So you need to give them something more. Like the thing is that this new consumer is very, very demanding. And if you don't give them like this thing to latch on, they will probably buy this one time. And the next time they're not going to find anything particularly interesting about you. And the next time that they want cookies, they may or may not come back to you. Whereas if you give them something to really latch on, then you're way more likely to bring them back.
I find it ironic that the owner of the chocolate company is commoditized his product and said they all pretty much are the same, when I'm thinking if it's a great chocolate cookie, why would somebody want to take a chance to not get a great chocolate cookie and just stay loyal to this great tasting product? And you've made it sound like you're selling this commodity, like if the wind changes, they'll buy from somebody else. And there's probably some truth to that. And there's no question there's some truth to that, but I think you've taken it to an extreme. I think there's somewhere in the middle. I think a great chocolate cookie speaks for itself.
Definitely.
You can use that as a line if you want. I'm going to give that to you right now. That's my tagline for the day.
Definitely. The thing is that I am already competing with a ton of different people, and I am on e-commerce. So they are not tasting the cookie right away. They're not going to a bakery and eating the cookie. They have to be convinced, like there's something here.
Yeah, no. You've given I see where there's some stuff I hadn't thought about. I totally understand where you're coming from, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you might be a little overboard on it, and maybe there's still great chocolate chip cookies, great brownies. There's a certain core that will continue to buy those from you without the other stuff. But I can't argue with the fact that I didn't realize that's where you got all the customers from. So you are in fact talking about an audience that I'm not, used to.
We're running short on time. There are a couple of things that I want to make sure we hit. One is, Hans, you've talked about how you decided that the mission was so important to you guys, which does raise an interesting question. You chose to locate your business in Texas. Has that worked out okay for you? Do you guys feel comfortable in Texas?
Frankly, it's been great. Austin is different than the rest of Texas. I can tell you that, for instance, something that happens a lot, like 50 miles from here, is that it's very white and very Christian, and it's probably not as welcoming for people like us. But other than that, like Austin has been amazing. And that is, I think, that something that is like very important, like, and really trigger a lot of things about the mission. Austin is this bubble, and we were so comfortable, so comfortable in this bubble that we forgot what's happening. Well, that thing that happened in Uvalde a few weeks ago. It's very easy to get comfortable. So it has been great to us personally, but we have really made a point of being very aware of how privileged we are, because it is not the reality of a lot of places not far from here.
Hans, I think you said that you met earlier today with a venture capitalist. Can you tell us what that's about? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, we're raising a seed round. Our goal is to grow into retail. The idea is to get the cookie dough into the shelves and then the cookies. So we're raising a $5 million seed round. So we're all over the place talking to everyone and everywhere. So the idea is that there's a big opportunity not only on e-commerce, because the thing with e-commerce is that people who are ordering the $40 dozen of cookies, they are very engaged with the product. If you put it on supermarket shelves, you really put it at the reach of a lot of people, and no one is really innovating in that category. So we think that there's a big opportunity there. So yep, we're racing.
I'm curious, Hans, how much of your time does the fundraising take?
A lot. A lot.
That's part of the reason I don't do it, and I'm asking.
It is like having two jobs, particularly in this climate. The one thing that I learned that I found fascinating, because at first I was, okay, we need to raise capital, and I was treating it kind of transactionally. And down the line, we started like having more conversations and really enjoying the conversations. And it is not a burden. It is a lot of work because you need to be on your toes all the time, and you never know what opportunity is going to present itself. Like the one that I talked to this morning is a big fund that we're too small for them, and they were very clear about that. But it's someone who we really want to make a relationship. So when we're ready, they will be our first call. It's stressful because, of course, you need to raise, but we have learned so much and we have connected to so many people, even if they have decided not to invest for whatever reason, that it's a nice part of the job, actually.
Hans, do you need to raise?
God, you read my mind, Lauren. That was my question. You used the word need to raise.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. We started a business, like I told you, like we had 25,000 cookies ready for South by, and we started the business. We were $14,000 out, and we grew the business out of nothing. Like literally nothing. And we made it work. Like, of course, like that big boost at the beginning really helped. And what we learned, and we learned it the hard way, was that the bigger your business are, the riskier it becomes. So we got ourselves to a point where we are doing an insane numbers, but we didn't really have the right capital structure for that because we grew very fast. And that becomes very risky. So you need to have two things. You need to have like the proper capital structure for yourself. And the other thing is that you need to open some doors for yourself so that down the line, if you need to cross them, you will.
What's the risk you're referring to in growing fast, Hans? What was the risk you were concerned about?
If I have a $10,000 a month business and I'm short $500, I can put them on a credit card or something. I'll figure it out. $500 is easy to figure out. If I have $1 million business and I'm short $50,000, it's a very different conversation that I need to have. So you need to be prepared for that. And frankly, we were not. We really went through a very tough time. And actually, we're still like in a very kind of, let's just say that our wings are slightly clipped right now. We're trying to be we're being very slow and very conscious of how we spend money. But we cannot really grow unless we have capital.
Okay, that is absolutely crazy. To suggest that you need to get more money because you can't grow makes no sense, because if you have a profitable business, you take the profit and you reinvest it in the business and you can grow it. To suggest that going to a venture capitalist is going to be less risky is just laughable. That you're going to give your life to these guys and they're going to take you to some wonderful dinners and tell you nothing's going to change. You're totally with you. That is just not how it always works out. So I challenge that whole concept of that this is a less risky thing to go to a venture capital than just take your profits, reinvest them in your company, and grow at a nice clip. Because that's what I did. That's what Liz is doing. That's what Laura did. That's what lots of people do. And there's lots of people that went down that other road and got a surprise at the end of the day, which is, oh, the venture capital guys are not my best friends. Liz, you with me?
Oh, I'm absolutely aware of that.
I haven't really gone down the path of VCs for a lot of reasons, but I can't actually say that I have enough experience to have a strong opinion about it. My perception is that it would suck up all my time, and my time right now has to be devoted to growing my business because it's growing fast. If I had to pull away from that and do some sort of a roadshow, that would be miserable.
Well, the thing is that in our case, like we already put ourselves kind of in a risky situation, which is unfortunate. And if had I known what I know now, I would have taken a different path to how to grow the business.
What are you referring to, Hans? How have you already put yourself in a risky position?
Growing your business so fast, and we were doing at our peak, we were doing $700,000 in revenue in a month, which was insane. That required a ton of infrastructure and that required a ton of investment. So that profit has already been reinvested. And the other thing that is very important, and just to make it super clear, because I don't think most people appreciate this, I came to the country 3 years ago, so I don't have access to credit. An SBA loan, for instance, is not available to me. And a lot of tools that are available to you guys, Americans, are not available to me.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a valid point. Yeah. I didn't consider that. I would still question whether if you're profitable, if you have a bad month, okay, then you're less profitable. But I don't know that you need to go and you're doing a decent amount of volume, not decent, you're doing a phenomenal amount of volume in a short period of time. I would think that you could capitalize the company by just being profitable for a year or two and socking some money away. If you say, no, I want to go big or go home. Okay, if that's your plan.
No, that's definitely the plan.
Okay, if you have that need to do that, I can't argue with that.
Oh, no. Of course, that's the plan. Like, the idea is to go national. Like, right now we're doing e-commerce, and the idea is to go national and supermarkets. So, yeah, that maybe I should have started there.
Yes, exactly. Now that, okay, fair enough. Yeah. If you
that is not a vanity metric.
If your goal, if you are wired and you want to go national and grow this into a gigantic company, you're correct. Yeah. You probably need to take in venture, but you certainly don't need to take in venture capital if you don't want to do that.
Oh, no.
A good VC is also going to help you with distribution. They're going to have inroads. So there's a value in that might merit, taking outside investment. That would be a case for me. Like if I found a VC that really could help me with manufacturing and with supply chain and distribution, I would work with them over someone that was doing something with technology. In fact, I already have decided that I wouldn't work with a VC that focuses only on technology because I know that they're not going to understand my business, and that would be a huge problem.
Startup culture right now, a lot of it is like raising money is the end goal. And a lot of people, and I've heard like very big business say that to me, the goal is to just inject money and grow, then raise $100 million and either go public or sell for a ridiculous amount of money and get out as fast as you can possibly do it.
Of course, there are risks with venture capital. I mean, you give up some control and things can go wrong. I'm curious, Hans, given the entrepreneurial visa that you're here on, what would happen if the business failed?
I would lose my visa.
And then you'd have to go back to Guatemala?
Well, like you go to Austria. He's got an Austrian.
Yeah. Or I could go to Europe. Yeah, probably we'll go to Europe. Yes.
Do you both have Austrian passports?
No.
Well, how did he come with you then?
Oh, yeah, we got married here. Yeah.
But if the business failed, you would have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, or build a new business.
You keep thinking as an entrepreneur, you've got all the risk you possibly. I never heard of that one. That's a whole new level of. And then if you fail, they kick you out of the country. I mean, that's just.
That gives new meaning to the phrase "go big or go home."
Yeah, right. And figure out where home is.
It's something that we have really struggled with because, and don't take this the wrong way, but you were not aware of all the limitations we come about safe spaces and all of those things. All of a sudden, you start comparing yourself to an American company that started at the same time as you're doing, and they're doing 10 times what you're doing, and you're like, what? And then you realize, we are in a way at a disadvantage. To the point about VCs being able to bring their network with them. we came here 3 years ago without knowing anyone. And I think we've made it very far, but we haven't had 20 years of building a network or talking to people or get our name out there. We had to do it very fast, and we don't have that advantage.
No, absolutely. Listen, we're on the same page now. I got it. Good for you. Congratulations. And again, the most important thing, though, is good chocolate cookies and brownies. Let's not lose sight of that.
This has been really fascinating. I'm sorry I got to cut this off. There are other questions about you, Hans. I had other questions for Jay and Liz as well. We're going to have to do that another week. My thanks to Jay Goltz, Liz Picarazzi, and Hans Schrei. As always, thanks for sharing. And Hans, really great to have you here and really appreciate your telling us what you've been through.
Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.